Welcome back to the Caffrey Class Network. Today we will be discussing the topic of euthanasia, the ethical aspect of it, and how people feel about it being used and legalized. First, we will be talking about a study that conducted this through cancer patients, and dying cancer patients were interviewed about their thoughts on euthanasia and the legality. Euthanasia, if you don't know, is the painless killing of a patient suffering from an incurable or painful disease or in an irreversible coma. Now, the method of this experiment was taking 66 palliative patients who were suffering from cancer and were at the end of their lives. Palliative care is a treatment that relieves suffering so the patient passes peacefully, and they were asked about their views on euthanasia or whether or not it should be practiced. Now, the results of this were interesting. Some informants were pro-euthanasia, which was about 29% of them, while others were opposed to euthanasia, which was about 20% of those interviewed. But the majority of these patients, which was about 51%, were undecided owing to the complexity of the issue. Their views on euthanasia were all linked to personal autonomy, which is making your own decisions throughout your entire life. This came to the conclusion that euthanasia increases patient autonomy because they are making their own decisions at the end of their lives by enabling decisions to control one's own death as well as life. This was perceived in a positive way as something valuable and as a human right. And the conclusion of this was that death is inevitable and it is a scary topic to talk about, but euthanasia is ultimately up to the person's choice whether or not they want to take their own life under professional care. It is all linked to the personal autonomy and essentially their last decision to make. But looking at the data, it is interesting that the pro-euthanasia did outnumber those against it, owing to different factors such as religion and how these people were raised. But it is a topic that we will be interviewing later and getting some other people's opinions on as well. The second story we will be covering today is actually a more general study surveying a broad number of people that aren't necessarily in the same place that those cancer patients were in, where they were in great pain and were at the end of their lives. And what is interesting to note is that there are actually 7 countries that have legalized euthanasia and the use of it only under the specific condition that the patient is dealing with the unbearable suffering, and terminal illness is not considered to be a variable in meeting the compulsory criteria. So this study was done, and many studies have been done surveying many different people about this topic, and specifically asking whether cancer patients or patients suffering from unbearable suffering in general should be able to receive medical euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide. Now, something that is interesting is that in nearly all of these reports, these surveys, nearly 50% of participants in each study agree to legalize euthanasia, where 50% say they wouldn't under the proper circumstances. So 50% of these people are saying that it should be legalized under the proper circumstances. Determining whether physician-assisted suicide is the right choice is not only a choice made by the patient, but by the doctor as well. This is big because the doctor has to actually agree to this process to actually go through with it. The opinion of the doctors providing such services is also an important factor to be considered in the process. In the Medscape Oncology Ethics Report of 2020, it showed that about 55% of more than 5,000 oncologists surveyed nationwide said yes, that euthanasia should be legalized, whereas in 2018, where only 49% of the oncologists agreed. So what we see here is we see the uptrend in the amount of people that do agree to this being legalized and put into practice in the proper circumstances, meeting those compulsory criteria that we talked about. Now, as we end this segment, it is easy to be skeptical about these topics because it's something that many people don't actually get to this point where they are struggling in this way with these unbearable pains. It's easy to be skeptical of the decisions regarding livelihood of human beings, where religion, culture, and morals all play a vital role in life and death. However, in this new day and age, people are becoming more independent than ever and making their own decisions. So the question really is, should we be able to hand this freedom off to people to be able to make this decision, this life-altering, huge shift decision to actually end their suffering? And we're going to throw to Chris here in a couple seconds, and he will have some interviews with some people on the street, some people walking around that will have their actual real responses to being asked about whether they think euthanasia should be legalized and in the use of it. So let's throw to him.
Action.
Hi, I'm Christopher Oppenborn, and today I'm going to be here interviewing
Brandon Jackson.
So Brandon, do you know what euthanasia is?
I do. Euthanasia is a process of which, if somebody is going through a chronic disease which they're going to pass away in the near future, it's a solution to help them ease them into death.
Right. So, do you support the idea of euthanasia in people with the situation that they're like terminally ill or have a progressive disease?
Yes, if that person feels the need that is unbearable and they can't take it no more, is that I feel like it's that person's responsibility to take that upon themselves, because nobody knows what that person is going through but that person. So I support the idea. Of it.
All right. So, would you personally partake, or if you had to make a decision for someone, would you be able to make that decision or partake in euthanasia yourself if it became to that situation?
Me personally, hopefully it never happens, but no, I couldn't do it because of religious beliefs. I couldn't see myself possibly making that decision for anybody else as well through religious beliefs. So, that's a very touchy subject, very hard, but I couldn't do it.
Okay, well, that's understandable. Do you have anything else to add on the idea of euthanasia, or anything to say about?
The only thing I have to say is that I support the process, and I support people's feelings who are not going through it, who have loved ones that's going through it. I understand that they want to keep them here around, so I understand all of that. Everybody's feelings do come into play, and I wish everybody, a good luck. Because as far as I know, that process of the euthanasia is still very new to me. I just support the idea of it.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it.
All right, so first question, what is your definition of euthanasia?
Okay, so euthanasia is basically just assisted suicide. The patient obviously has to be okay with it though, because that would just be awful if it wasn't.
Next question, do you just support the idea of euthanasia?
Not necessarily. I personally wouldn't agree with it. I'm kind of scared of, having to make that decision personally, but I would say I don't agree with it.
If you had a life-threatening disease, would you partake in euthanasia?
See, now that's a hard choice. Personally, I don't think I would go through with it, just for the simple fact that I'm scared of death, but I don't think I'd do it. And in the case of choosing for another person, if they don't have like a living will, it'd be very tough to make that decision. But personally, I don't think I'd go through with it.
And last question, do you support hospice care or euthanasia?
I'd go with hospice care, just for the simple fact that it's gradually and it's not painful. Obviously, I know euthanasia isn't painful either, but just for the fact that you live a little bit longer and like you can say goodbye to the people that you love, I think that is a way better option than picking euthanasia to just get rid of that pain, even though you could just choose hospice and live a little bit longer without that pain either way.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right, so first question, what is your definition of euthanasia?
Killing people?
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I mean, genocide.
Do you support the idea of euthanasia?
No.
Why?
Because, I mean, people have the right to live. I mean, unless there's something wrong with them. I mean, there's, that's what they're doing overseas right now.
If you had a life-threatening disease, would you partake in euthanasia?
Possible.
Why?
So we'd have to go through the pain. We do it for dogs.
That's true. What is your opinion on death?
I have no opinion. We're dying to die.
Like, are you afraid of death? Are you afraid of dying?
No, I mean, I'm at peace with myself. People should be at peace.
What is your opinion on people that choose to, go through euthanasia?
That's their choice. Everyone has their own rights, if they choose.
Okay.